You sit down at your desk at 9 a.m., and suddenly it's 5 p.m. You've spent 8 hours answering emails, jumping between browser tabs, and drinking cold coffee. But when you look at your actual to-do list, you haven't finished a single meaningful project. We are taught that keeping all these plates spinning is a professional virtue. The corporate world rewards the appearance of motion, treating the ability to handle 5 things at once as the ultimate indicator of a high-value employee. But the brain does not process multiple complex tasks simultaneously. You are actually rapidly switching your focus back and forth between incomplete thoughts. Every single pivot burns a measurable amount of mental energy. We have been optimizing for an illusion. This constant shifting creates a high-speed internal friction that slows down every thought you have. Researchers at Stanford University decided to test this by examining heavy media multitaskers, the people who chronically consume multiple streams of information at once. The logical assumption was that these people would be exceptionally good at processing data. The results showed the exact opposite. When put through cognitive tests, the chronic multitaskers performed worse at filtering out irrelevant details. They also demonstrated a striking inability to manage their working memory. Because their brains were so accustomed to constant stimulation, they struggled to hold and organize specific pieces of information. The American Psychological Association has studied the mechanics behind this failure. They looked specifically at the biological friction generated every time we switch our attention from one project to another. This chart breaks down a typical workday. According to their research, those constant micro-switches incur a cognitive penalty that can cost you up to 40% of your productive time. That means almost half of your day is vaporized by the transition process itself. At this scale, attempting to do 2 things at once forces you to operate a deeply handicapped biological system. To understand exactly where that lost time goes, we have to look at the work of business professor Sophie Leroy, who identified a phenomenon called attention residue. Think of your attention as this solid beam of light. When you stop writing a report to answer a quick message, your brain does not make a clean break. A portion of your focus stays stuck, leaving a residue on the first task. Your prefrontal cortex has to work incredibly hard to manage this transition. First, it has to actively force a disengagement, tearing away from the logic of what you were just doing. Second, it has to completely reorient to the new target. Your brain must pull up the new rules, the tone, and the context required to answer that incoming message. Finally, and most exhaustingly, your brain must actively suppress the lingering thoughts about that unfinished report so you can successfully hit send on the message. This entire biological sequence takes time. Studies show it can take up to 23 minutes to fully regain your previous level of concentration after a single interruption. You only have so much mental energy to spend each day. Every single task switch is a massive, unrecorded withdrawal from that finite daily cognitive budget. This drain is compounded by the sheer number of choices we force ourselves to make. Psychologist Roy Baumeister's research maps exactly how this rapid-fire decision-making accelerates the drain on our mental reserves. He found that willpower and executive function draw from the same well. Choosing which browser tab to look at next burns the exact same fuel you need for complex problem-solving. Deep work requires holding a vast, intricate architecture of ideas in your mind at once. When a notification pulls you away, that delicate structure collapses. Returning to the project means you must build the entire mental model from scratch. If you reach 5 p.m. feeling entirely depleted with nothing to show for it, the cause is clear: context collapse. Your mental energy was consumed by cognitive overhead rather than the work itself. To escape this cycle, top performers rely on a strict, distraction-free environment. We call it the single-task protocol, drawing directly from Cal Newport's research on deep work. Step 1 is the 90-minute block. Sleep researcher Nathaniel Kleitman discovered that our brains operate on Ultradian rhythms, predictable 90-minute cycles of high and low alertness throughout the day. When you align your most difficult tasks with these natural biological peaks, you get higher quality output. It consistently outperforms trying to muscle through an 8-hour day on pure willpower. During these 90 minutes, you must enforce environmental boundaries to prevent context collapse. That means working with a single open tab, physically removing your phone from the room, and isolating your focus. Your brain will still generate random impulses. Step 2 is the task quarantine system. When you remember an email you need to send, physically write it down on a notepad and immediately return to your primary work. By logging the thought externally, you reassure your brain that the task won't be forgotten. This securely parks the distracting idea, satisfying your anxiety without breaking your cognitive context. Step 3 is the energy recovery protocol. Focus operates exactly like a physical muscle. After intense exertion, it requires deliberate downtime to repair. When that 90-minute timer goes off, take a 15 to 20-minute break completely away from screens. A walk outside allows your prefrontal cortex to flush out any lingering attention residue. Compare the math. Completing just 2 or 3 of these focused blocks per day creates a volume of output that would take a week to produce in a scattered environment. Deliberate practice yields higher quality work with less total time spent. Productivity relies on the depth of your focus rather than the number of items on a calendar. Aggressively protecting your attention is the only way to escape the myth of multitasking.